Hi friends, it's Becky, and I'm in love with the Shoreline Stroll Sam's Bead Box. This is the Bead Box for July 2025, and I've decided that I want to make a found glass beach items knotted necklace. I'm going to be using this conch shell that we got that's got the bisected thing. There were two of these in the bead box, and then a lot of the recycled beach glass that was the cultured beach glass that came out of the bead box. I'm going to be using these in my design. I also grabbed that 8.0 seed bead mix. We're going to be using that in our knotted design. And I'm going to be knotting using some 0.5 millimeter Chinese knotting cord, and I've got it in this sandy beach color cord that we've got here. And then I'm also going to be knotting using some medium Softflex beading wire. That's the stuff right here. I've got it in the fluorite colorway. It's a really pretty color. It'll blend really nicely with the rest of the theme. And I've got 40 inches of each of these. So 40 inches of the knotting cord, 40 inches of the beading wire. For closures, I've got some 2x2 crimps for the beading wire, and I've got some culottes for doing a little knot cover on the knotting cord. And then we'll be just grabbing some 5mm and 7mm jump rings and a lobster clasp for that. I used some scissors to cut my knotting cord. I've got some flush cutters that I've cut my wire with. When I open and close the jump rings, I am going to be using my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to be crimping using my magical crimper. So those are the tools that I'm going to be using. You don't need any tools to start out with except to cut the wire with. So I've laid out sort of a rough design of how I want the beads to go, like the order that I'd like them to be in, and I verified before I started whether or not the hole on some of these beads would fit on the knotting cord. You want to make sure before you get started that they'll all fit. And so these larger ones definitely fit on the knotting cord, like the long green ones, the long blue guys, but these smaller cylinders have a little more difficulty. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to include the beading wire, because I can put the beads on that instead as we go through some of our spaces. And I'm totally fine with some of my having maybe even some long bits and stretches of this cord and wire just showing, because it doesn't need to all be packed up and in and have all of that in there. Now I did take my knotting cord on one end and I sort of melted it a little bit and then pinched it to make it into more of a needly shape. And I'll show you how to do that with the other end real quick on this end. And you can do this with a lighter, or if all you have right handy is a thread burner, you're just going to melt the ends, the edges of the knotting cord. You don't want to burn it completely down. While it's still a little bit warm, kind of roll it between your fingers to get yourself a nice little point. And if you get any weird bumps, just go ahead and burn that bit off. Alright, so there we go. It is stiffer on that end. It will go right through. It should. Anyway, I may need to narrow that a little bit more, which is totally fine and doable. Be careful not to burn your fingers when you do this. There we go. And that's how you can get your beads strung on, because otherwise knotting cord has a tendency to kind of pull apart if you don't do that. Alright, so now I've got both of my strands. I've got my beading wire and my knotting cord, and I'm going to find the middle by taking both ends, and they're the same length, But I want both my ends here, and that way I can find the middle of this. So I'm going to take the middle bit and I'm going to go through, let's see, do I want it to come out that end? I think I do. So there's a hole here that you can use for stringing this on or for adding a bail or something like that. But I'm actually going to be having mine point downward. So I'm just checking where these are coming out of for each of these sides, and I think I want it to be coming out of there. So I'm going to go ahead and put the beading wire and knotting cord through this side. And your conch shell might be totally different from mine. You may have two spots clear that are closer to the inside, and then I'm putting that through the other side. There we go. I'm going to just take all 4 of these together and make sure that I've got a loop left on this side, and it's basically just going to be a lark's head knot to get this in here. So I've got my loop, I've got all 4 strands. I'm going to pull those 4 strands through that loop. Tighten that up just a little bit. And then I'm going to do an overhand knot right here next to this lark's head knot. And if you need to help with the knotting to get that knot closer down to where you want it to go, you can push it down with your fingers while you're tightening it up, or sometimes it can be a little bit weird getting all 4 strands tightened up all together. There we go. Now it just looks like it is. There, like that. Okay, so now I've got these 2. I'm going to do a little knot right here on this side of the larger knot. Again, we're just doing some knotting. If you need to grab an awl or something like that to get that knot closer. I don't really want super tight knots to begin with. So I'm just pressing down on the knot with my finger while I pull away and just tighten it. There we go. You can also use one of those. So I've got that one on that side. I'm going to move that over there, and then I've got one on the other side that I'm going to tie. And this is just so that I've got a little bit of space separating these both sides of my necklace next to my big focal. The Softflex is really flexible, so it knots very well. But you don't want to untie it after you've used it. Alright, so I'm going to ignore this side for right now. I'm going to move these guys over here to the outside and get this guy in here. I'm just going to put 4 of these beads on, and it doesn't matter to me which of them I've put on here. Just on the beading wire. I'm going to take my knotting cord. I'm going to put that on there on the other. Actually, let's add more of those. Just going to fill up that whole strand. And I'm totally fine with it being like a random one, which sometimes when you do random, it ends up being several of the same thing all in a row. So I'm going to kind of try to de-randomize it a little bit more. That's the problem with random, is sometimes random doesn't end up actually being that random. There you go. One more. And that's just so that I've got these colors going up along the side of this bead. Like that. And I'm going to do an overhand knot. Again, I'm pressing down, trying to keep that knot close with my fingernail. But I'm super fine with it not being right up against this bead. I like for there to be some movement, some freedom. I don't want it to be super tight. Alright, so next in the row is going to be this guy. And I'm just going to put both of these through this green one. If I can. It actually might not like both. Let's keep going, inch that through. All right. And another little knot. If you're making something similar, you can place your beads however you want to on here. You can go through both, you can go through just one, you can play around with it. And I'm just giving myself a little more space between those two knots so that it's less janky and more flowy. Alright, now for this one, again, that hole is not big enough for the knotting cord. So I'm just going to put this one on. And then another knot. It's just overhead knots, guys. That's all we're doing. Doesn't need to be super fancy. Alright. And now I'm going to put on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe of these guys. On there. Let's do another little knot. You know what I'm feeling? I'm feeling like another one of these long guys right about here. So maybe we're going to go ahead and skip this amber one. Get this guy on here. Or here, this one. Like that. Yep. I'm feeling that one. I'm feeling it. Alright. So this one's going on the knotting cord. Was it just the first one that fit? Probably not. This is not that stiff here. So I'm just going to stiffen this up a little bit by melting it. It's coming loose. And that's making it hard to push through these beads. Wow, I think the other end might work better. Double check these guys. See if they're gonna fit. Because if not, then that's gonna wreck my whole plan. I only checked one of these beads, y'all, my friends. Only one. To see if they'd fit. Alright, we're troubleshooting. I just need one of these to fit on here. Just one more, because this one was great. Alright, there's one more in the thing. To make this stiff all the way down here. Basically turning it into a needle. Because once I can push it through far enough, I can pull it through the rest of the way. Just brushing it very lightly against the cord, by the way. That's all I'm doing to melt the outside of it and stiffen it up a bit. This is the opposite end, and the only reason I'm just doing this one like this is because I don't want to unknot any of this stuff and go back, and I would like for this to be symmetrical, so I am stiffening this up enough so I can push it through the very long bead, and the rest of it I'm just going to not use those beads for this design. I will use them for a different design though, because I have other ideas for these long beads. There we go. Alright, I just wanted to make sure that that would work on that end, because it's totally fine if I just use these beads for this end. For the rest of this way. It will work for this design. I just wanted to have some symmetry down there next to my little guy. So let's stack a few of these guys on here as we come up alongside this green bead. I think one more. Yes. Perfect. All right. So this is still going to work. Hand knot. Make sure there's some space. Let's get this guy in here. This yellow one. Actually, let's pick up a seed bead, and then this one, and then another seed bead. How about that? Yeah, it's kind of got like the rope twisting around amongst our found objects. That is what I want. That is what I want. All right. We're just going to be adding some more of these guys up here. Let's see if I can get both of them through this one. Maybe, maybe not. If not, it's totally okay. That's the way to do it. Put the knotting cord in first, and then push through the other. There we go. So it's similar to this one down here. Give that another knot. One of these is tightening faster than the other. When that happens, you can just pull the other one to make it match, because we're knotting them together. Alright, let's get this blue guy on here. I do like it with the additional beads. This blue one here, and this yellow one here. Alright, let's give that another knot. And we are getting close to the end of my cord. So I am going to check my length. See where we're at, because I still need to be able to tie a knot in the end of this in order to get the culotte on there. I'm just giving this a little bit of a pull because that helps tighten the knots and also straighten this out. Aha, this is definitely going to be long enough. which is great. It's going to be just a little bit longer than collar length, so this bit will hang out a little bit lower. Let's go ahead and add this guy in here. I'm going to put some of these. How many was this? 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. 8 of those. So let's pick up 8. And then we'll put our last green bead on here. On this side, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4 of those. There you go. And one more knot right here with both of these strands together. All right. And now let's get this knot tied off and hidden inside this collat. You're going to want to go through the hole at the bottom of the collat with, they're also called clamshells, which you know is a beachy theme. But we're going to get this guy down here next to the knot. And I'm going to be doing a loop on this end, and we're going to have both of our loops, oh dear, we're going to have both of our loops go connect together onto the jump ring. So now that I have this coming through here, and this is a part where you may need to grab like a knotting tool or a bead awl or something like that, something that will allow you to move that knot down close to the mouth of that collat. This is not a beading awl, it is actually a bead reamer, so it is textured, so this does not slide very easily. You could instead grab some tweezers, push that down there. Okay. So now that I've got that knot tied there, I'm going to use my cord thread burner to burn that bit away. Carefully so you don't burn yourself. Alright, I'm going to burn it right up next to the rest of that knot so that it melts into itself. And then I can close this around it. And then I'll be able to put that jump ring through here. So I've got one half knotted and that closure over there. Now I need to do a crimp on this end. Using my magical crimper. So I've got my crimp on. I can bend this back. I am going to want my loop to be able to match up with this hole here. So I'm just going to put a little spare piece of wire through this to make sure that when I tighten up this loop here, it ends up at the right place. So it's not too far down, not too far up, and it's going to actually work well for marrying these two on the jump ring. So that's going to work for me. But now I need to move it away from there in order to actually do the crimping. So I measured it, and I'm just making sure not to make it larger or smaller when I do my crimping. For a magical crimper, I'm going to center the crimp in this concavity right there in my crimper. Give it a smush. It smushes down just the corners of the crimp. I'm going to go over 90-degree angle and crimp around at different angles until all of those sharp corners are smoothed out. And now I've got myself a nice little ball of crimp there. Snip off my excess wire. I think that's going to be the front, so that means this will be my right hand side. So I'm going to attach my lobster clasp to those. Alright, just keep in mind everything that I do on this side I'm going to repeat over here. So I've just opened up the jump ring, swung it out so I can go through those holes on that culotte, through the loop on that beading wire, and through the loop on my lobster clasp. And once those are all looped on there, I can swing my jump ring closed again. And now that is ready to use a clasp. So let me knot up this other side, get the closures all set on the other side, and again I'm going to do exactly the same things that I did on this side on the other side, only instead of the lobster clasp I'm going to use this ring, and I'll be right back to show you the finished necklace. Alright, and here it is all finished. We have our conch shell, we have our found object, knotted strands, and just like I did with the lobster clasp, I finished the end of my cord with a culotte and the end of my wire with a crimp, and then strung them both onto this loop using a jump ring. And now I've got a necklace that will close, and everything is beautiful. I love this bead box. It is one of my favorites. If you would like to check out Sam's Bead Box, I'll put a link to my unboxing, the official unboxing, and the page at Sam's Bead Box shop where you can find all of the bead box extras, a link to sign up, some of the design elements like some extra seed beads if you wanted to do some extra seed beading with it, and I have a coupon code that you can use to get $5 off your first month subscription if you sign up for Sam's Bead Box. Until next time, my friends, happy beading.